Good morning. Welcome to this moment. This is the Diamond Mothering with Carolyn and Lisa. We're here to illuminate the core of the feminine force. And this morning, Carolyn's turn to spill the beans. She's going to be sharing a story with us, and then we're going to pick some gems of wisdom from her story. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks so much, Lisa. And, it was funny, actually, last night after we had this, I really enjoyed it. I don't know about you, but it unlocked something in me. And I was putting my head in the pillow last night, and I was saying to myself, okay, Caroline, what's your story going to be? And then it actually came to me really quickly, something that stood out as being like a challenging thing for me. And it was actually kind of my dark night of the soul story, I would say. And I think really I got to the nucleus of why we're even sitting here, because it was when Lauren we were looking for her secondary school, and she was in sixth class. She was 12, 11, I think, actually, even. Yeah, because I think the year before she went. So it was around like 11, 12. And, she had this great, beautiful school, and everything was absolutely gorgeous in the school. It was educated together school, and beautiful, community of mums. And I was involved in the book club and the craft group. And we had, it was gorgeous, small community of like-minded people. So then we got to secondary school. So we were trying to pick, because we live in Dublin City, there was a choice of different schools. So I was trying to pick the right school. And I really kind of got to the stage where, because I suppose we had this really nice community, and it was kind of idyllic nearly, and then when it came to secondary school, that just wasn't there, it just didn't exist. There was one school that was really kind of maybe too liberal, like, the phones were allowed in school classroom and stuff like that, and it was very more like college really, and I thought that was way too much for. And then there was kind of the schools that were a bit more traditional. So I remember I just went through so much anxiety, like, Lisa. It was just, it sounds it's hard to describe, but I really found it so hard, because I felt I had nowhere to go and nowhere to turn. Because like I thought the older mums, my mother and that generation, they all seemed to be, they weren't there to give me advice, because they were actually dealing with their own kind of, anxiety and depression. And, I just realized it just became really highlighted to me that, like, the kind of elders of the family of that generation were really kind of suffering with their own kind of, issues and health issues and stuff like that. And it seemed like, there's nowhere to turn really, to get that kind of advice. And then the mums around me kind of all were in the same situation, so they didn't really know either, But I remember one night in particular, it just kind of, I just, all I could describe it as like dark night or so, but everything seemed to just kind of collapse in around me, because I felt that I had this beautiful child, this beautiful girl, and she was going to go out into the world, and I wasn't be able to. I just felt I couldn't protect her. I was trying to make the decision, but I just didn't have the wisdom, and I didn't have the knowledge that I needed. I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have the support group. I didn't have a place to go with such, and it just felt really, really isolated. I felt really, really isolated, and especially I was away from my family as well. I was away in Dublin, and it just all kind of, the pressure was like this intense pressure. And I remember kind of just, it was more than a panic attack. It was like dark night of the soul in the middle of the night, just really feeling kind of.
It's always the middle of the night, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just, it's hard. It's funny to think how intense it was, but it really was. And remember, then I thought to myself, that's when I started kind of on the quest for kind of this wisdom kind of teaching, and I was trying to find that. That's the only word I can grasp for. I was like, I need some wisdom. I need some actual
Mm.
somebody that I could go to give me some proper guidance that wasn't fear-based, that wasn't just going to, or also like, instead of going to statistics, like, go to this school because it's got great grades and they'll go straight into college from there. That seemed very, it wasn't understanding the child as such, and I just felt I wanted something that would give me an understanding of my child and an understanding of the school, and that they could be matched, that kind of way,
Mm.
or
Mm.
somewhere that could give me some kind of words of advice or wisdom around that. And eventually, then I started actually looking into, actually, that's what was my quest with, like, the wisdom traditions of the world. And I started kind of researching into, I suppose, trying to educate myself really. And I started looking into, I suppose, all the different avenues of thought and reasoning, and to try to educate myself a bit more around trying to make myself aware of how to make a conscious decision when it came to
Mm.
something
Mhm.
like that, and that
Mhm.
was like 7 years ago, I suppose. But it's been a really awakening journey and enlightening journey since then. And I suppose that's why we're sitting here, because I thought that's something that isn't really present at this time for mums,
Mm.
a place to go to kind of get that type of guidance and support and community and wisdom, I guess, So like it's just because all those major decisions do cause so much anxiety, and like in since then, even with mums that I know, of children, with younger children that were in our school, kind of, that were coming up through that and having that decision, I could see them all going through the very same
Mm.
thing. It was amazing. The anxiety they went through, it wasn't so much the child, it was actually the mum going through this huge, anxiety and fear when the child is going into secondary school. It just seemed to be this massive kind of jump mentally and emotionally for mums.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you're right, because I can remember going through that too, because my daughter was quite creative. So for me, there was this lack of, yeah, really, actually, even back as far as my boys, who were always getting in trouble in the normal school, and I'm thinking, if only there was a school for boys, where they could just like go mad every day, climb
Yeah.
trees, do
Yeah.
building, do all of these things. And at the time, there was no Steiners or Montessori's or
Mm.
anything like that around where I live. So in fact, that questioning has really plagued me quite often with most of my children. And it's like, how do you find something to fit your child? Now, I do have one child that actually fits perfectly into the schooling system, and
Okay.
I never had that question with her. Right, this is just like,
Yeah.
that's just where she belonged. That's just, she
Yeah.
did well, she thrived. But that's one out of four, right?
Yeah.
So high chances are that a lot of mums are having a similar feeling around,
Yeah.
why can't I find somewhere for them to fit in? And so what do you think, Carol? Like, for you, the solution was making a conscious decision. And
Yes.
what was the difference then? Like, how did that actually help you feel better about
I tell you,
the whole
actually,
thing?
it made me feel, when I realized there was no perfect school, you know, like I was looking again for this perfect school that would fit her. And then I realized it wasn't the perfect school that was needed. It was just for me to have the emotional stability and the kind of, I suppose, the inner strength to be able to guide her through the systems that are here already, because you
Mm.
can't go and change the system. I mean, there are, it kind of is evolving slowly, we say, but I kind of took a different kind of attitude, and I thought it put me back into kind of my control and my power, because I realized that it's nothing from the outside that could change. I just
Mm.
realized that there was no perfect school. Stop looking for
Mm.
a perfect school and start just connecting more deeply with her and listening to what her needs were, and guiding her through the best school that I could pick for her at that given time.
Mm.
That kind of
Mm.
way, that's available, and that it would suit her personality and maybe the essence of who she was, because I knew her strengths, I knew the strengths that she had. So I just thought I'd pick a school that would suit that kind of essence that I could see in her, And then I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but I would be able to kind of keep a really great, communication
Mm,
going and
mm.
emotional kind of support around that. And then every time she'd kind of come home, if she was kind of reeling against it, because it was all
Yeah.
girls Catholic school, so it was a bit different for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a bit, but actually there was some beautiful, and I suppose I tell you, it was a little bit of a throwback to fear I had myself of going back into the days that I went to,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so I was kind of a little bit of reliving the trauma that I had from secondary school.
Yeah.
The first one that I had, it was very like, I mean, back in the 80s in Ireland, and it, yeah, it was pretty strict. So I suppose
Mm.
that was a bit of a kind of a throwback to that. And then when she got into it, I realized actually the reality of it was a lot different. Actually, that they were very, very nice, and okay, they had rules, but it wasn't as strict as it had been when I was younger. And actually, now I joke about the school was run on teen biscuits.
Yeah.
Because whenever there's anything wrong, there's always like tea and biscuits. So, I suppose it was, yeah, they always go
That's
to that.
good.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it was old fashioned in one way, which was nice. It was kind of nice as well. So like we
Yeah.
worked through it, and she's only got 2 years left there now, and she has done really well. She's kind
Yeah.
of grew into it, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's beautiful. I just want to say hello to Daryl and Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us this morning. I can see your
Okay,
comments, so
Daryl.
I can say hello to you.
Hi, Elizabeth. I know Elizabeth's from Canada. Hi.
Good. So, so I want to pull out two gems of wisdom from that story, Carolyn, because I think this is such a beautiful example of what I have experienced and also what I see happen a lot to other mothers. First of all, we have these situations and we think it's about the event, trying to find a score, trying to make it perfect, trying to match it up. But actually, it's about how we are feeling. And like for me, that always comes down, there's this unconscious not good enough thing happening.
Yeah,
My inability to find the perfect score
yeah,
activates my not good enough.
yeah.
And if I can see that, and if I can actually see this as an emotional reaction that I'm having, which is making this choice so hard, which is exactly what you did. You went, okay, I need to step back from my feelings for a minute, acknowledge that I've got this feeling of frustration and step back.
Mhm,
And then once I step back, I can actually put them aside and actually just become more conscious in this decision.
mhm.
And the decision then that you make is so much more effective because it's not being driven by this unconscious emotion that we're often even not aware of. So
Mhm.
that was like the first gem that I'd love to pick out and point out
Brilliant.
is that just really see that. And then the second gem, and this was a great one, you mentioned this sort of further in, how often what's happening to our daughters activates something in us, a memory in us.
Yeah.
And that, like my experience
Mm,
as a teenager, like I was a
mm.
really naughty teenager and I did my poor mother, like honestly, I've apologized to her so many times because I was rebelling. My dad had left and, you know,
Yeah,
I, I was just this really naughty teenager. And as a result, I had to get conscious because I was projecting that onto my daughters.
yeah.
Like they would do things and I'd be like, "Yeah, I know what you're doing. You're sneaking around the corner. You're going to hook
Mm.
up with a boy. I know." But like my daughters never did that, and so I had to stop
Yeah,
projecting my experiences onto them so that they
yeah,
could be who they were, and so that I didn't have all this emotional stuff going on that really just wasn't the story at all. It was my
yeah, yeah,
past story being activated. So that was the second thing I heard from that, and and I think those 2 gems of wisdom
yeah.
for parents, like, they're
Mm,
2 really big ones, you
mm.
know?
Yeah, and actually that's brilliant because it's true. It was the first time I realized, I started to understand about projection. I didn't really understand about that. I
Mm,
didn't realize I had been doing that. It was like looking through a veil of, my own experience. And it
mm,
wasn't actually until we were sitting around thinking a book club with the other mums one night, and I was talking about it with them, and I started to realize actually that it was my own experience of my teenage years that had been traumatic because I had that situation. Actually, when I think about it now, I had a
mm,
really nice primary school in the countryside. Everybody was really nice and everything. And then I went to this really strict boarding school, and with, it was on just
mm,
very traditional. And I just like, I remember yeah, so that was activated, you know. So it
Mm.
was the awareness of that, I suppose, really helped me kind of cope with it actually, because I wasn't in it then. I was
Yes,
like I
yeah,
was
you can
back
see the
from it.
reality.
Yeah,
Yeah, see
yeah,
the
yeah,
and I do think this is, and we'll probably talk a lot about this over the next whatever years, however long we're talking about this for, is this healing of our inner teenager. Like we talk a lot about the
yeah,
inner child, but I
yes,
actually think there's an inner teenager. And if you think
yeah.
about it, the inner teenager is what bridges our inner child with our adult. And at the moment, a lot
Mm,
of people still feel like the inner child still is acting out. And so it's like if we could get this bridge and awareness around
yeah,
the bridge of the inner teenager, like really our awareness can expand a lot. And I'm sure that we're going to get to that. We have a series. We'd like to invite you listeners to our series of 3 free webinars coming up. It's really exciting. It's only in a couple of days.
yes,
Birthing of the Diamond Mother, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of things that are influencing mothers in this time and in this culture, and how we can actually step into that feminine force inside of us so that we can make really effective and deliberate choices, but also how we can create a beautiful relationship with our daughters so that they have this culture around them that's healthy and emotionally safe. And
yeah.
that, I think, is our emotional advantage. So there is a registration ticking along the bottom of this screen, but also there'll be one in the link as well. And we'd really love you to join us. They're free. Just turn up. We'll foot the bill. We just want to get to know you and you to us, and so that we can learn as well and share some of these things that can really help mothers today.
Yeah.
So
That,
we need to
that's
end now. This has been a beautiful conversation, Carolyn.
That's amazing, Lisa. And I just want to say one last thing, because a few mums are very excited about it. They want to be today already about it, but they were worried that they would miss the weren't available for the webinar when it was live. But so if you register, you'll get a recording
Mm.
email to you, won't you, Lisa?
Yes,
So
that's
if you,
right. Yep.
yeah, so
Yep.
if you can't make it live, if you still register, and then you can get your recording emailed to you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
that'll be
They'll be
amazing.
available to the 24th of February, so you'll have a bit of time to watch them. And yeah,
Yeah.
they'll be really juicy.
Hey,
I'm looking
excellent. So
forward to them.
you're up
Right.
again tomorrow night.
Yep. Same
Actually,
time, same place.
and yeah, so we'll
But
see
tomorrow we
you.
have a guest. So tomorrow we are doing the feminine force field, and we're introducing a guest, Jenna Rodriguez, who's talking about what we need to know about ego and mothering. She's an ego expert from America, and she's I've spoken to her before, very conscious mother. Her daughter's 17 now, and she's we handpicked these people to join us for these really great conversations. So tomorrow night it'll be a bit of a longer live, and we'll be talking to Jenna. So please do join us, and thank you all so much for your feedback and your comments.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Elizabeth and Daryl and the Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is, but thanks so much for your company, everyone, and see you tomorrow night.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Lisa.
Good
Thank you for
night.
your words of
Bye.
wisdom, Lisa. Bye.
Bye.